Hey everyone, welcome to Artech. So what I'm going to show you how to do today is to replace the filament sensor in the dual extrusion module. And as you can see, mine is actually the original dual extrusion module. So I'm going to go ahead and do the upgrade for it at the same time, which is mostly the front and the filament sensor parts. So in order to do this change, you're going to need a few things. You'll need the Snapmaker screwdriver kit. And with that, you're going to need the H1.5 hex tip. You'll need the H2.0 hex tip. And if you've got the quick swap module on it, you're going to also need the H2.5 hex tip, as well as a pair of tweezers. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get the filament swap out started. So as mine does have the quick swap module on it, I do need the 2.5 in order to remove it. Okay, so to start, let's go ahead and remove the 4 screws on the top, and you'll need the 1.5 for that one. All right, once you've done that, go ahead and open this up a little bit and take the cover out. Go ahead and remove these. Now let's go ahead and continue. Okay, now that we've done that, you need to go ahead and remove the 4 screws in the back. You need the 2.0 for this one. Okay, now that we've got that removed, go ahead and pull this out. Okay, next thing you need to do is go ahead and disconnect the 2 motors. Okay, once you've removed the cables, okay, so we got to go to the back and we actually need to remove 2 screws. There's a screw right here and a screw right here. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, one thing to be aware of, you need to be cognizant of this piece right here. Careful when you remove this that you don't turn this piece around. And as a matter of fact, just to make sure that you put this in exactly the same way as when you removed it, because it does have to be in a certain position in here. I kind of recommend taking a picture of it so you know exactly where this is positioned when you replace it again, so you know if you have it back in the right spot. So when you reassemble it, you can compare it to the picture to make sure it hasn't been moved at all. All right, let's go ahead and finish taking this apart. Okay, now go ahead and remove this. And again, make sure you do not move this at all. We just need to get this out of the way. Okay, now you need to use the H.15. There are 2 screws inside of here. You need to remove both of those. That's going to be for your filament sensor. Okay, now here are the filament sensors. You see one of them actually popped out after I had removed it. Now, when you take these out, be aware they are labeled left and right. This one's the right side, this is the left. So when you put them back in again, make sure you keep an eye on what side is what. Okay, so be aware also, there's adhesive here, so you do need to remove that. Okay, once you've got all of the adhesive off of it, in order to remove this, there's like a little lip here. You got to push that lip down and pull out at the same time. Depending on how well it's stuck in here, it might be easier just getting a pair of pliers and gripping the edges of it, and then still pushing down in the center where this little lip is, pushing down in the center and then pulling out, working its way out in order to get it off. All right, so here is the old right sensor. Now let's go ahead and do that with the left side. Okay, and there was a little adhesive on this one that was sticking it to the module. Let's go and clean that off. And you need to do the same thing, get all the adhesive off of it. For me, I actually found it easier ripping it from the sides. Do not pull it from the cables, because if you do, you risk pulling it out of the little connector, so do not do that. I'm just going to grab it from the side, push in, and then try to wiggle it out. Okay, and there it goes. It did still have some adhesive on it, which made it a little bit harder to pull out. All right, now the old filament sensor is now removed. Okay, now let's go ahead and flip it back over again. So next we are going to install the trigger pads, which is this round disc looking thing. And there are some little slots on the side here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show it to you or not, but it's right here. And there's another one right down here. You'll be able to see it once you open it up though. So again, use your tweezers and go ahead and slide that trigger pad inside there. After that, you need these little copper blocks, and you will place that over the trigger pad. Once you get one side in, you do the same thing with the other. And when you place the copper blocks in, they're actually going to be, see if I can get a good view of that. It's going to be like this. So one side is going to be flat, smooth, and the other side's got ridges to it. The ridges side is what's going to be facing up. All right, so get the other trigger pad, again slide it in the slot, and then get your copper block and place it over it. It is shaped inside here to fit the copper block inside of it, so you don't have to worry about that. It will slide in and kind of drop down inside of it, and once it's snug, then you know you have it in there correctly. But it should be nice and flat, and you do want to make sure that the copper block opening is facing downward. Let's see if we can get it in there. You see right here, got the slot is facing down, and the little trigger block is actually in between the little groove. Same with this side. The trigger is in between that little groove, and it is facing downward. Okay, at this point now, we're going to need the new sensors. Make sure you get your old ones away, out of the way, so you don't confuse the two. And just like the originals, these are labeled. I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see it, but written right here, it says right, and the other one's going to be labeled left. So make sure you put them in a way so you remember which side is which. Okay, now you got to take the black spacers, and there's like a little screw hole right here. You got to place the spacer right on top of that. Okay, now that we got the spacer in there, we're going to need to go ahead and install or place the new filament sensor on top of it. So let's kind of just flip this out of the way. So this is the right side here, which you can tell because it says R right here. Okay, so we got our little spacer on here. So go ahead and get the right side filament, place it right on top. Okay, now we take the replacement screws, go ahead and screw it down, use the 1.5. Do not tighten it. All we're going to do is just screwing it in, that's it. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the same with the other side. Go ahead and get your little spacer, place it right above the screw hole. Get your left side filament sensor, and again, make sure it's the new one. Place it right over it. Get your replacement screw, screw it in without fully tightening it up. Okay, now that we've got these screwed in, like I said, don't make it too tight. Flip it over, and now let's go ahead and test to make sure that we don't have it too tight. By doing that, go ahead and open these up. Take a spare piece of filament. Make sure you can slide it all the ways down inside of here. Okay, so I can slide it all the ways in and out, so that means it's not too tight. It's a snug fit, but not too tight. If you weren't able to put the filament in here smoothly, then you'll need to loosen up the screws. Do that for both sides. Okay, again, you can see the filament comes all the way through without any issues, so it's not too tight. All right, let's go and close this, close this. Okay, now that we have tested it and the filament does slide in and out properly, as I said, you want it to be a snug fit, but not loose. But not tight. I'm not actually moving, I'm just making sure it's a snug fit, which it is. All right, at this point, go ahead and screw or plug in the connectors again. Make sure it's in there properly. All right, now that we've done that, the next step is go ahead and put the motor back in. You're going to want to match this up with the picture that you took, if you did take a picture, to make sure it is lined up properly. And once you know it is, go ahead and put the screws back in again. Make sure it's a snug fit. All right, now that we've got this screwed back in again, the next step is go ahead and plug your motors back in. All right, now that we've got everything reassembled, the filament sensor placed back in, we want to go ahead and test it to make sure we do it right. And one note I do want to make is that when you reassemble this piece right here, there is a flat edge and there's a rounded edge. When you install it, make sure that the flat edge is facing up. If it's rounded, then you have it on incorrectly. When I put this together, I actually did have the rounded edge up, so I had to take it off and align it properly so that the flat edge was up, because it did turn on me while I was working on it. So be aware of that. Okay, so before we assemble everything, we do need to test it. I've already got it hooked up to my Snapmaker. You do need to have your nozzles back in. Once you do that, let's go ahead and power the Snapmaker on. What we are looking for is to make sure that when we home it, the right side does move up and down. If it does not, then that set screw on the back, that means that is not correct, and you will have to remove it and realign it properly. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do a homing procedure to test this. Okay, you can see here that the right nozzle did move, so my screw is set in there correctly. Next, we want to go ahead and test to make sure the filament sensor is working properly. So what you're going to do is go ahead and push it in so it goes into the nozzle. Since your top is kind of off, you want to be careful to make sure you get it in there properly. And if it is, the red light should come on. Okay, so the red light is on. So we know that side is working. Now let's go ahead and do the other side. Okay, the red light comes on, so this filament sensor is now working. So we know both sensors are working at this point. So now we can go ahead and just power the Snapmaker off, take the cable off, and then we'll go ahead and put the shell back on and we'll be done. Go and slide this back inside the shell. And at this point, if you still have the old cover, you go ahead and swap it out with the new cover. You can go ahead and put the cover on at this point if you want. You just need to go ahead and hold it into place. Okay, now go ahead and get your top screws. Make sure you use the 1.5 on this. You just want these to be snug. You don't need to strong arm it into it, otherwise you risk stripping these. Okay, once you got the top on, we're going to swap out back to the 2.0 and then go ahead and install the 4 screws back into the back. Okay, and after that, if you have the quick change plate, you want to go ahead and install that. Install the plate next. And for this one, you are going to need the 2.5. And that is it. That's how you change the filament runout sensor for the dual extruder. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to ask them below and I will do my best to answer them. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Hope you guys have a great day and y'all stay safe out there.